Hey everyone, I want to talk about a secret behind the TikTok ban that no one's talking about. Towards the end of the video, I'll let you know what the secret is. I don't think anyone actually knows it, and that's why it's not being discussed anywhere. So China is on the verge of losing access to the US market for that product. It's a very popular product in the US, 170 million users, and tens of thousands of businesses in the US are using TikTok. They've established an audience, they've established a presence on the platform, and they're conducting business. China stands to lose a fair chunk economically. It's in their best interest to have a positive outcome, and yet they've been very uncooperative, very suspiciously uncooperative about this. Because if you think about it, if they don't cooperate, they not only stand to lose a huge economic benefit, the US market, they also stand to lose grace with the US government, because the US government has been suspicious about the product. So if China was more cooperative, that would help, and they have not been cooperative. So as of today, the tens of thousands of hours, hundreds of thousands of hours spent using the product by businesses and users is gone. The ban went into effect. Now, there's been some discussion of a delay in implementing the law. That's problematic, and I'll explain why it's problematic as we go through this. So how did the ban happen? The first thing is the government became suspicious, especially the intelligence agencies, that the TikTok application was being used for nefarious reasons by China. The House of Representatives passed the ban on March 13th, 2024. The U.S. Senate passed the TikTok ban on April 23rd, a few weeks later, 2024, last year. President Biden signed it into law on April 24th, 2024. So this process, the legislative branch, the House of Representatives and the Senate, write the laws. The executive branch, the president, signed the bills into law. So it becomes federal law after the executive branch signs passed bills into law. It's federal law. The TikTok ban went into effect as of today. So it was tested. TikTok argued that it should not be banned. It went all the way to the Supreme Court. 2 days ago, the Supreme Court upheld the ban. So all three branches of the U.S. government have now held up the ban on TikTok: the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch. You can't get any stronger than that. It's been tested at the highest court in the land, and the ban went into effect. So there's been discussion of using an executive order to delay the ban by 60 days. So that is a problem because, as I said, it's federal law. It was signed into law, federal law, by Biden. The Supreme Court upheld the federal law. So the president cannot nullify federal law. They just can't. That's been proven throughout our history. If you look this up about what executive orders can do, whether they can overturn federal law, answer no. The way law works in our country, in our system, the Congress, the House and the Senate write bills. The executive branch sign them into law. They become federal law at that point. In this case, that law has already been tested. It is rock solid. So I don't see why the president's advisors are telling him that he can override federal law. I think that's really problematic. I would not have advised that. I would have advised adhering to the law. The reason Congress passed that law is they suspect China is up to something with the application, with the TikTok product. And they can't prove it, though. All Congress has, the intelligence agencies have, is an application running on a smartphone or a computer, but they suspect it's being used for nefarious reasons, but there hasn't been really a way to prove it yet. And that's behind the secret that I'm going to let on towards the end of this. Okay, so let's talk about, let's assume that the 60-day putting off of the implementation of the ban goes into effect, that the new president, the new administration sets it aside for 60 days to allow China to work something out. What could happen? Okay, so there's already been an outstanding offer, a very good offer for the U.S. version of that product. We're not even talking about the entire product line. We're only talking about the U.S. version of TikTok, a $20 billion cash offer. You can't get any better than that. For just the U.S. version of a product, that's an astonishingly good offer. Kevin O'Leary of Shark Tank and a group put that offer together, and China rejected it. That's very suspicious. This is the reason that Congress passed that bill and Biden signed it, because China's behavior with the product has been suspicious. They've been very uncooperative. That's a good offer. Here's why that's a good offer for China. China now has access to the U.S. market for all their economy, all their products and services. including TikTok, not just TikTok, but their entire line of products that they sell to U.S. consumers. It is in China's best interest to fully cooperate with the U.S. government, and yet there's been this great offer they have been rejecting, even though they know they're under threat of losing access to the whole market. It does not make sense for a company to lose that many customers overnight, especially when there's a cooperative buyer in the country that's objecting to the product. But they have. China's just refused to cooperate. That's very suspicious. There are other buyers too. It's not just Kevin O'Leary's group. There's been other buyers who are willing to buy the application. The big software companies would love to have it. Microsoft, Oracle, and Google, and probably Amazon too, have the wherewithal to buy the U.S. version of the product. China has rejected all of them. They're putting at risk the U.S. reputation they have, the ability to sell into our market by being uncooperative. So China now knows the U.S. is serious. Does China know that the U.S. is serious? Yes. As of 2 days ago, the Supreme Court upheld the law. China knows we're not messing around. The application is going to be shut off. So they have a huge incentive to cooperate. So what is going to happen to TikTok in the U.S.? The Chinese are now more inclined to cooperate. There's no question about that. They know we're serious. The problem is this with that product, and this has been the secret behind this entire ordeal that's not being discussed. Because until now, the intelligence agencies in the U.S. and the government have not been able to prove, they've not had physical evidence that China is using TikTok for nefarious reasons. And if China cooperates with the U.S. and sells the U.S. version of the product to Kevin O'Leary or someone else, they will have to give up a part of the product they don't want to give up. There's two parts to a software product. The first part is the part that we see on a smartphone or a computer. That's called the binary file. That's the executable that the computer chips understand. Humans cannot read that, but the computer chips can work with it. It's digital, and humans cannot read it. That's the first part of a computer application. The second part is the source code. That's the part of the code software engineers write. So software engineers in China wrote the TikTok application in source code, in human readable source code. With that kind of physical evidence, if China sells the US version of the product and gives over the source code, the intelligence agencies will have physical proof that China was using the application for nefarious reasons. And you might say, well, maybe they weren't using it for nefarious reasons. Their behavior has been quite suspicious, given that they stand to lose access to the entire US market for all their other products by being so uncooperative. So it's highly likely that China is using TikTok for nefarious reasons. If they sell the product, the US version, to a US buyer, we will have physical proof that they've been using it for nefarious reasons. And that is the secret. That's why they have not been cooperative. They don't want to give proof that they've been using it for nefarious reasons against the United States. If they give up the source code and we discover that, it won't lead to war necessarily, but it will lead to harsh economic penalties against China. And the application will 100% be banned, not just in the U.S., but throughout the world, in the Western world. Once it is physically proven from the source code that China was using the application for nefarious reasons, the entire Western world will ban it. And China doesn't want that. And that's why they've been risking their reputation with the U.S. So this is the only possible outcome. And this is assuming that the president takes this step to extend to put off implementing the federal law by 60 days. I don't think he should do it. I think he should follow federal law. We'll see how that goes. But assuming the 60-day delay of the implementation of the federal law goes into effect, the only possible outcome is that China will sell a minority interest in the TikTok application in the U.S. to an investor group. 49% or less, and they will retain ownership. China will retain ownership of 51% or greater of the product, and they will not give up the source code. They will instruct the U.S. buyer, the minority owner, you are a minority owner. You do not get the right to change the product. You do not get the right to have access to the source code to make any changes to the product. We retain that right for us, the majority owner, back in China. That's the only possible outcome. So I think what's going to happen is the U.S. government is going to, even if the 60-day delay of the implementation goes into effect, I think the U.S. government is going to put their foot down and say it's banned. If you're a business owner considering whether or not to start using TikTok, I would say absolutely not. It's not looking good. China could get themselves into deep trouble by handing over physical evidence that they've been using it against the U.S. They're not going to do that. They're just not going to. So if you're a business owner wondering whether you should start using TikTok, absolutely not. If you're an existing user with an economic presence on TikTok, You have to weigh that versus pausing and looking for an alternative. There are other options in U.S. software to create a business. Obviously, it's a disaster that it's gone, that you've spent a lot of time building up an online presence and audience and a business presence on TikTok. It's a problem that's gone, but you have to weigh that against a hostile foreign power possibly using it for nefarious reasons against the U.S. The name TikTok means the clock is ticking. What is it ticking towards is the question. You have to wonder why they named it that. So that's a conspiracy. Obviously, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I would be very cautious about spending a lot of time implementing any sort of business activity on TikTok. I don't think it's going to last. I think the 60 days will come and go. I think these investor groups will say, if you're not going to allow us to make changes, the law is not going to cooperate with that, because this would have to go back through Congress and allow a buyer to have a minority interest and no access to the actual product. I don't think that's going to happen. So I hope that was informative. That secret about the source code, no one's talking about it. I don't think most people know. I've got a tech background. If you have any tech questions, you can post them in the comments. I'd be happy to try to get to those. And I want to thank everyone for watching, and have a great day.